You did something incredibly brave. You left. Even if you're still haunted by doubt, guilt, or confusion, remind yourself of this. You got out. That alone is a powerful beginning. At first, the quiet may feel strange. You might miss the noise, even the toxic kind. That's not weakness. That's the aftershock of emotional conditioning. For so long, you were trained to believe that chaos was love, that love meant enduring pain, pleasing someone else, shrinking yourself. But now, the silence is yours. It may feel foreign, but it is sacred. In these early days, healing doesn't feel like healing. It feels like falling apart. Tears come in waves. Sleep doesn't restore you. Everything makes you think of them. A song, a scent, a stray memory. You may replay every fight, every manipulation, trying to understand what happened or what you could have done differently. But this is where healing quietly begins, in the not knowing, in the letting go of explanations you may never receive. You weren't crazy, you weren't too sensitive, you weren't overreacting. You were hurting, and your pain mattered. In toxic dynamics, your reality was twisted. Gaslighting made you question your instincts. You were praised when you stayed silent, punished when you spoke truth. So now, even in freedom, your mind may still echo their voice, the one that told you that you're hard to love, that you're never enough. It takes time to unlearn those lies. What you're feeling now, the confusion, the grief, even the longing, is normal. It doesn't mean you want them back. It means you want back the version of yourself that felt loved, even if it was never real love. You're mourning the illusion. You're grieving the years. You're aching for a tenderness that always seemed just out of reach. Healing means mourning the version of yourself that kept trying to make it work. The you who tolerated too much, who walked on eggshells, who bent over backwards hoping things would get better. That version of you was fighting to survive, to be loved, to be seen. That version of you deserves your compassion, not your blame. There's no fast-forward button through this part. Healing is not linear. Some days you'll feel strong, empowered, even proud. Other days you'll spiral, question everything, miss them so much it hurts. This isn't failure. This is healing. Start small. Get out of bed. Drink water. Make your space safe again. Take walks without checking your phone every few minutes. Unfollow them if you haven't already. You don't need to track their life anymore. You don't owe them your pain, your attention, or your hope. Reclaim your space, piece by piece. Light a candle. Move furniture. Open windows. Rearrange the energy. Your home is no longer a battleground. Next, reclaim your voice. Write down what happened, not to justify or explain, but to validate your own memory. Speak it aloud to yourself or to someone you trust. Give language to the hurt, not because they need to hear it, but because you do. Now is the time to return to the quietest parts of you, the parts you silenced for their comfort. The music you stopped playing, the books you stopped reading, the clothes you stopped wearing, the opinions you stopped sharing. Every time you choose yourself, you heal. Rebuild trust with your own body. In toxic relationships, your body stayed on high alert, waiting for the next outburst, the next punishment, the next silent treatment. Your nervous system learned to expect danger. So, be gentle now. Slow your breath. Stretch in the mornings. Sleep as much as you need. Let your body remember safety. You may feel like a stranger to yourself. That's normal. You had to disconnect parts of yourself to survive. Now you're slowly reconnecting. Be patient. You're not broken. You're becoming whole again. If you find yourself romanticizing the past, pause. Ask, what exactly am I missing? Was it real Or was it hope? Did I feel safe? Or did I feel responsible for their happiness? Was I seen? Or was I used? Toxic partners often give just enough to keep you hoping. A kind word after cruelty, a soft moment after rage. They made you chase highs to survive the lows. That's not love. That's manipulation. And you don't deserve to be trapped in emotional roulette. You don't have to hate them to heal. You don't have to forgive them yet. You don't have to understand why they hurt you. Some people choose power over connection. Some people hurt others to avoid facing their own pain. Their behavior was about them, not about your worth. What you do need is to come back to yourself, to stop looking at your reflection through their eyes, to see yourself as you are, a human being worthy of peace, of love, of joy that doesn't come at a price. You might also feel guilt, not for leaving, but for staying as long as you did. That guilt is misplaced. You stayed because you loved, you hoped, you believed the best in them, you believed in second chances. That's not something to be ashamed of. It means your heart is good, but now your good heart needs better boundaries. Healing after a toxic relationship is not just about avoiding another one, it's about restoring your relationship with yourself, trusting your intuition, honoring your needs, refusing to make yourself smaller for anyone's comfort. It's okay to still feel attached. That attachment was carefully constructed. It was built on guilt, fear, intermittent kindness, and emotional dependence. Cutting it is painful, but necessary. Your brain became wired to associate love with stress. Now it's time to create new associations. Love can be calm, kind, consistent. But before you receive that from anyone else, you need to give it to yourself. Self-love isn't bubble baths and affirmations. It's choosing not to text them when you're lonely. It's going to therapy. It's setting boundaries, even with yourself. It's saying no to people who remind you of them. It's learning to sit with discomfort instead of running back to pain that feels familiar. You might feel like you wasted years, but those years weren't wasted. They were lessons, proof of your capacity to love deeply. They taught you what you never want again. They made you wiser, softer, stronger. Even if it doesn't feel that way yet, right now, your heart may still ache. But each day you choose yourself, you rewrite the story. You are not the person they said you were. You are not their projections. You are not their anger or their absence. You are still here, still whole, still healing. Keep going. Keep choosing your peace, even on the hard days, especially on the hard days. You're learning what it means to be alone without being lonely. There's a kind of solitude that isn't empty. It's sacred, a space where your voice is the only one that matters. A moment where your thoughts no longer compete with someone else's chaos. This quiet may feel raw at first, but in it, you begin to hear yourself again. Notice how your nervous system starts to settle. There are no more walking on eggshells mornings, no more apologies for feeling too much, needing too much, being too much. You begin to notice what safety feels like, not as a dramatic absence of danger, but as the gentle, consistent presence of calm. You may still feel the aftershocks, moments where you flinch at sudden noises, or question a compliment, or brace yourself when someone raises their voice. That's not weakness. That's residue. Your mind and body are learning what it means to be safe again. Healing also brings clarity. You start to remember all the small ways you were diminished, how your successes were ignored or resented, how you were made to feel guilty for having needs, how the silence was used as a weapon, how your joy was often met with control, not celebration. You start to notice how often you said, "It's okay," when it wasn't, how often you justified their behavior, how you felt the need to defend them to others, even when you knew something was wrong. You're beginning to see the difference between compromise and self-abandonment. You begin to realize that love should never require the loss of your identity, that love should never hurt more than it heals. Grief is still part of the process. Not because you want them back, but because you're slowly acknowledging the weight of what you carried. The love you gave that wasn't returned, the words you never heard, the apologies that never came, the closure you'll never get. You might even grieve the idea of love itself, how you thought it was supposed to feel, what you hoped it would become. And that's okay. Grieving illusions is part of reclaiming truth. This is when anger may surface, not loud, fiery rage, but a quiet, simmering anger. At the years you lost, at the times you stayed, at the lies you believed. Let that anger speak, not to consume you, but to teach you where your boundaries were crossed. Let it remind you what you will never accept again. Anger can be sacred. It is often the first true voice of self-worth emerging from beneath layers of guilt and fear. You begin to reclaim your time. You make plans without asking for permission. You go hours, maybe even days, without thinking about them. You start to invest in yourself, in your passions, your growth, your well-being. You reach out to old friends, not to explain or apologize, but to reconnect. You begin to trust that not everyone wants something from you. That real connection doesn't require you to shrink. The world slowly opens again. You begin to laugh, really laugh, the kind that feels like breathing for the first time. You catch yourself smiling at small things, sunlight through curtains, the taste of food you love, music that moves through your body like a memory. These aren't distractions. They're signs of return to joy, to freedom, to self. There are still hard days when the weight feels heavy, when you wonder if you'll ever truly heal. On those days, return to your truth. You left for a reason. You left because your soul was slowly suffocating. You left because your heart wanted peace more than chaos. You left because you deserve better. You may still carry fear, the fear of choosing wrong again, the fear of trusting someone new, the fear of falling into another toxic dynamic. That fear is valid. Let it walk beside you, but don't let it lead. You are not the same person who once accepted less than they deserved. You are wiser now. You see red flags more clearly. You listen to your gut more often. You've learned that love is not about endurance. It's about respect, safety, and mutual growth. Your story doesn't end with trauma. It continues with resilience. You're allowed to rest now, to have soft days, to not always be productive. Healing isn't something you achieve. It's something you live. Some wounds don't close in straight lines. Some healing happens in circles, revisiting old pain, this time with gentler eyes. You might begin to notice how much compassion you've developed, for yourself and even for others. You understand now how broken people break people. That doesn't excuse harm, but it helps you put down the burden of revenge. You're no longer fueled by pain, you're moved by truth. One day you may meet someone kind, someone whose love feels unfamiliar, not because it's wrong, but because it's healthy. They won't create chaos just to comfort you afterward. They won't punish your honesty. They won't disappear when things get hard. And when that day comes, you'll know how to receive it. Not from desperation, but from wholeness. But until then, your relationship with yourself is your greatest healing. Do the things that anchor you. Read, write, sit in the sun, walk by water, create, breathe, notice what brings you peace, and protect it fiercely. Let solitude be your sanctuary, not your sentence. Learn the art of being with yourself, not as a placeholder, but as a priority. You are not incomplete. You are not waiting to be saved. You are rebuilding a life that no longer revolves around survival. You are relearning what it means to feel worthy without validation, to rest without guilt, to love without losing yourself. There will still be triggers, a voice that sounds like theirs, a place you once went together, a movie they used to love. When those memories rise, breathe. You're allowed to feel them. You don't have to pretend they're not there. But remember, the past is not your prison. It's your proof. Proof that you survived. And not just survived, but emerged. You are becoming someone who chooses peace over patterns, someone who listens when their soul whispers, "This isn't right." As someone who no longer makes themselves small to be loved. You are becoming someone new, and also someone you've always been beneath the pain. You might not be ready to love again, or you might be curious. Both are okay. But let your next love meet you in your wholeness, not in your wounds. Let them see the light you protected, the strength you cultivated, the softness you reclaimed. Don't rush. There is no timeline, no comparison. Your healing is yours alone. You may never get the apology. You may never see them change, but you don't need either. Because the most powerful closure is this: living a life that no longer includes them, a life where you wake up without dread, a life where you trust yourself again, a life where your love is no longer a sacrifice but a gift, given freely, wisely, and to those who honor it. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose now, and now you are choosing you. There is a moment in healing when you realize you made it. You, not all the way, not perfectly, but far enough to feel the difference. Your nervous system no longer lives in fight or flight. Your heart no longer races at every unexpected message. Your days feel quieter, and that quiet no longer scares you. This is what progress looks like. Not dramatic, not always visible, but deeply, profoundly real. You stop identifying as the version of yourself that was constantly in pain. You begin to see your story not as one of damage, but of emergence. You are not just someone who escaped. You are someone who rebuilt. There will always be echoes. A sudden sound, a phrase that stings. But instead of drowning, you now float. You observe the pain. You greet it like an old visitor. You honor it, then let it pass. That is healing. Now, you start making decisions for your future self. Not for the wounded you, not for the person you were in survival mode, but for the you who is ready to grow, love, and create again. You stop waiting for someone to choose you. You realize you've already chosen yourself. There's a shift in how you show up, in how you speak, how you carry your body, how you look people in the eye. Confidence returns, not arrogance, not a performance, but a deep, quiet knowing. You've walked through the fire. You know your worth now. It doesn't rise and fall with someone else's opinion. You begin to draw different kinds of people into your life, those who honor your boundaries, who see your light without trying to dim it. And if someone doesn't, you walk away earlier, not out of bitterness, out of clarity. You're no longer willing to betray yourself for the illusion of love. This version of you has learned to sit with discomfort rather than chase quick fixes. You've learned that your healing doesn't depend on their remorse. You've stopped writing imaginary letters in your head, stopped rehearsing confrontations. You're no longer trying to prove the truth to someone who refused to see it, because now you see it, and that's enough. This is when forgiveness may rise, not as a forced act, not for their sake, but as a softening inside you. Forgiveness doesn't mean you excuse the harm. It means you no longer carry it like armor. It means you refuse to let what hurt you continue to define you. You understand that forgiveness can be quiet. It doesn't require reconciliation. It can live in the way you no longer wish them harm, in the way you no longer let their name disrupt your day, in the way you finally breathe deeply when you think of the past. And if you're not there yet, That's okay too. Forgiveness has no deadline. There's also a growing gratitude, not for the pain, but for the lessons. You start to see how much you've learned, how much you've reclaimed, how far you've come from the days when your worth was tied to someone else's approval. You're not numb anymore. You feel again joy, sadness, love, fear, but they flow through you instead of controlling you. You have emotional range again. That's strength, not weakness. You've also started reimagining love, not as possession, not as dependency, but as partnership, shared safety, mutual support. You understand now that true love won't require you to disappear. It won't punish your honesty. It won't collapse under the weight of your truth. You no longer chase intensity. You seek consistency. You no longer crave chaos. You seek calm. When someone new comes along, you pay attention to how they speak, not just what they say. You watch how they handle disappointment, how they treat your boundaries, how they respect your time. And if it doesn't feel right, you trust yourself to walk away. This version of you doesn't need rescuing. You are your own safe place now. You've learned that love without respect is manipulation, that passion without peace is harm, that staying in something toxic isn't loyalty. It's abandonment of self. So now you stay loyal to your peace, to your healing, to your truth. There's a deeper joy in your life now, not loud performative happiness, but steady, grounded joy, found in your routines, in your breath, in your relationships, in the small sacred things. You build a life that feels good in your body, not just looks good on the outside. You spend time with people who feel like safety. You laugh without scanning the room. You cry without shame. You speak without apology. You rest without guilt. You live, not in reaction to trauma, not in rebellion against the past, but in full presence with who you are now. There's no final moment when healing is complete. It's a lifelong practice. But you'll notice it in the way you respond instead of react, in the way you care for yourself when you're low, in the way you set boundaries early instead of after being hurt. You begin to trust that peace is not boring, that kindness is not weakness, that love should not feel like walking through fire. You understand now that real love, whether it comes from a partner, a friend, or within yourself, is not something you earn by suffering. It is something that flows naturally in spaces where truth is safe and hearts are honored. This version of you is not perfect, but they are whole. You've stopped rushing your healing. You understand now that wholeness isn't about never being triggered. It's about knowing how to return to yourself when you are. You've learned that boundaries are acts of love, not rejection, that rest is productive, that solitude is nourishing, that your softness is not a liability. You no longer need to be understood by those who refuse to hear you. You no longer need to prove your story. You no longer define yourself by your pain. You define yourself by how you rose. And so, you live, fully, gently, powerfully. You write new chapters, not ones where you're constantly fighting to be loved, but ones where love meets you with ease because it's aligned, not earned through suffering. You live with compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. For the version of you who stayed too long, for the version who didn't know better, for the version who gave too much. They weren't foolish. They were trying to love in the only way they knew how. Now you know better, and you do better, and you rest better. This is not the end of your healing, but it is the beginning of something beautiful. You are not a survivor of a toxic relationship. You are the author of your healing. You are the one who walked away, stayed away, and built a life rooted in truth, peace, and love, the real kind. And that is everything.